I'm super excited to have Andrea Robinson on the show today. She was a former TV news anchor and now is the creator of the You Do You Journal and media, which really serves to empower women through intention and gratitude and community to find their lost confidence. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I know you had like a 15-year career in TV, and that's kind of where you got your start. But then it sounds like there came a point where maybe it just wasn't working or you decided to transition. What was that moment of life like?
Well, I think that I had ran this race of perfection, is what I like to kind of picture it as. I wanted the perfect career. I wanted the perfect family. I wanted the perfect house. I wanted all those things perfectly done. And the deeper root of it is I wanted the validation from outside people. I wanted people to see me and tell me I was worthy and tell me I was good and tell me I was great. And I think I chased that longer than I needed to. And I did. I got to a point where it just became completely depleting, exhausting. And I asked myself literally one day when I had come home and I had like 30 minutes of me time. It was like the only time in this perfectly crowbarred day of routine. And I just remember crying, like, is this the way life is supposed to be? Like, is this thriving? Is this living?
Yeah.
Is this what I'm going to do now for the next 30 years? And to say that I got to that point one day and it just snapped would be a lie. It was a accumulation of things and feelings, my heart shifting and changing, things that I once loved. I didn't. Parts of my career that were easy became hard. People that I worked with that were, easy and fun to be around, we started to have distance. It was just one thing after another, which when I look back, because perspective is a beautiful thing, I see they were all parts of my journey that were changing me to find the confidence to just move away from that because there was this new chapter waiting. But the everyday became so hard and I felt like I was missing out on more than I was enjoying, and literally cried out that day, like, what am I going to do? And how am I going to change this? And it was an awakening day, an awakening moment.
Yeah, I think so many of us come to those moments in life where we're like, wait, I did all the things I wanted to do and I have all the things I want to have, but I don't feel joy and I don't feel at peace and I definitely don't feel rested or like there's any deliciousness to my life. It's just on the outside, it looks really good. What was that process of saying, okay, so on the outside, I've accomplished what I kind of set out to accomplish, but the inside doesn't feel like it matches the outer success. How did you start to reconcile that?
Well, I think I hung on to perhaps the career and this life longer than maybe I really should have. Now I just think, it was all meant to happen the way it did. But I hung on to it because there were so many people that were feeding me the validation that my heart was seeking. I am an absolute people pleaser, and I always say I'm in recovery for that. And I sought the approval of others in so much of what I did. And I think I hung on to what was known for too long because I was afraid of what people would say if I shifted or if I changed. But when I got to that point of this is just too exhausting, I'm completely depleted. I'm living for a weekend. And then the weekend would come, I'd live for Saturday. And then Sunday, the stress and the overwhelm would settle in and I would completely not enjoy Sundays. And I would look ahead at all the things that I had to do the week coming up. And all of a sudden I was just in this place again of, okay, it's just go mode. It's robotic. There is no human feeling anymore. The little moments I missed because I was just looking at what was ahead. I have to get to the next point. I have to do this. I have to do that. And there was no wiggle room or breathing room in my day. So how could I possibly enjoy anything that would bring me joy?
Yeah.
The process was messy.
Yeah.
Because when you start, I always say to do your heart work It is the hardest work. You
Yeah.
go to the gym to lose weight or to get healthy or to, you know, um, increase your cardio capacity or whatever it might be. And you start to see those changes early. So that sort of gives you that motivation to keep going. But your heart work, you don't see for a long time. It's
Mhm.
like you wait for the feeling, and sometimes the feeling takes months and years. And mine truly took a good year
Yeah.
of working on the inside. And that day that I like literally cried out and thought, is this life? I had gone to bed that night just a mess and just thinking, well, I'm going to go to sleep and tomorrow's going to be the same thing all over again. But I had gone to bed and there was a journal sitting next to my bed. A friend had gifted it to me. And I remember when she gifted it to me, I kind of, smiled and thanked her. But I was like, oh, sister, I don't have time for that. I wake up at 2:30. What do you think?
Yeah.
I've got time for that. Um, but I was desperate. And
Yeah.
so the next morning, instead of waking up and going through every motion, to quickly get out the door, I stopped scrolling social media that morning and I opened up that journal. And there was a series of questions it asked, but three of them spoke to me because they were so simple, but they were so hard to answer.
Mm.
And the questions were, what are you grateful for? And I was living in autopilot, literally in autopilot, and just moving forward, but not moving with any sort of feeling. And so I never stopped to think, what am I grateful for? Like, again, on the outside, it looked great, but I couldn't even recognize the
Mm.
blessings. And I was not trained. My mind was just focused on going, going, going instead of stopping and looking. Because when you stop and look, there's abundance everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
there is a blessing after blessing after blessing. But when you sit in ickiness and all the things you have to do, it's really hard to find anything good within that. And so that took practice. That question took practice. The second question was, what am I going to do to make today awesome? Okay, well, every day didn't feel awesome because I did the same dang thing every day. I mean, I literally woke up at 2:26 every day because 2:30 felt too late, 2:25 felt weird. So 2:26 it was. And then I ate the same thing every day. I measured my food. I mean, talk about chasing this ideal perfection, whatever I looked like. I mean, again, TV, you're kind of primed to look a certain way and to ward off the evil opinions of other people. I thought if I looked a certain way, they wouldn't say things about me. That didn't matter. If I was heavier one season of my life, they noticed. If I was too skinny, they noticed. It was eat a
Oh.
cheeseburger, stop eating the cheeseburger. So I literally measured my food to the ounce every day. I ate the same dang thing every day. So to say, what will I do to make today awesome? I don't know because today, that day never felt awesome. It was the same. It was Groundhog's Day every day.
Yeah.
So I remember asking myself that question. I thought, okay, it's not going to be something big and drastic, but it's going to be something different. And I thought, maybe I'll change up what I eat one day, or maybe I will take a different route from work home, or maybe instead of having to grind myself to the uh, core at the gym, maybe I just go for a run. Maybe that starts to heal myself. And the last question I asked myself, that this was one of the ones that completely rocked me because it was so hard. It was,
Mm.
what do you love about yourself today? I
Mm.
didn't love anything about myself because I constantly chased the validation from other people. And it
Yeah.
was like I tied their opinion to if I would like myself that day. And I really didn't need that. Down inside, I knew I didn't need, if I just loved myself, it wouldn't matter if they did or not, because that opinion wouldn't rock me if it was different than what I was hoping for it to be. So I approached that question in a weird way. And I'm sure there's therapists out there and psychologists that are like, there's no proof behind that, but it worked for me. And what I thought was, what if I wrote down the things I wanted to love about myself?
Mm.
And what if I start affirming myself like I would our kids?
Yeah.
With children, our job is to train them up and to affirm them and to get them to believe in themselves. You're smart. I'm proud of you. You're capable. I love the effort you did that day. You look beautiful today, or you're shining. I can see your heart just shining to the world today. And I appreciate that about you. Those are the things we say to our kids, right? And eventually our goal is that they have this firm foundation before they go into the world and are affected, hopefully less by the opinions of other people.
Mm.
But we have already been affected, some of us more than others. And so I thought, if I affirmed myself in a way like this and told myself these things as if they were truth, eventually I would believe them. Maybe it wouldn't be as quickly as it happens with kids because their brains are just so fresh
Yeah.
and they just take it all in. And we have to kind of work through the lies that sit right here. And it started to work. And I can't lie to you and say it worked in a week. I didn't realize I had developed this habit. I didn't realize that the consistency of doing this practice every day was changing me on the inside. And I was starting to believe what I wrote, and I was starting to just focus on good instead of all the things I had to, or all the things that were hurting me, or all the negative stuff that was junky in my head. I mean, it was a good solid year of doing this. And I finally felt that shift.
Yeah. So it sounds like that journal practice was really helpful to just get started. Um, Throughout that year, what were some other things that started to kind of break open your heart and just let some new, sounds like some new healing and growth and clarity come in?
Well, I went and found myself a life helper. And I always say a life helper because I like that word better than a therapist. But everybody needs a therapist, everybody needs a life helper.
Yes.
And she helped me drastically. I think that being married, I often used my husband as my life helper, and the expectation was too high on him that he would be able to fix me and help me. And
Yeah.
he did me such a great service, and he pushed me into going to find somebody. Didn't matter
Yeah.
what it cost. He said, "You need to go and talk to somebody." And I did. And it helped drastically.
Yeah. And I thinking about what you had said before about the internal work is so much more difficult than the external work. I find that 100% true about therapy. An hour of therapy, that is the hardest hour of my week. Like, there's nothing else that takes it out of me more than like a solid hour of therapy. I got to block off like 4 hours after that. I'm like, and then I'm done. I've done my work for the day. Thank you. Shop is
Well,
closed.
I remember one of the greatest things my therapist presented to me was the ability to use the word no, and that it doesn't have to be so negative, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to mean that you don't love somebody, or you don't like people, or you don't want to do for other people. It is a beautiful boundary that you start to place for yourself and for your own well-being. And I remember just pouring myself out to her, and she would rephrase the question. And one of the thoughts was, the way I would show up to my kids' school, and I wanted to be the mom that could do all of the things. And I would get emails of, the kids need 2 dozen cupcakes by tomorrow. And I would say yes, but I really hated doing that stuff. I didn't want to be the homeroom mom,
Yeah.
but I didn't want the other moms to say, oh, well, she's too busy working. She can't help her kids. And the therapist said, "Well, I mean, is that true? Like, do you think they think that? Like, what if they're not thinking that at all?" I said, "Oh, maybe they're not." And she said, "And so what if you said, 'No, I'm sorry, I can't do that today?' What would happen?" I said, "Nothing." And she said, "Exactly. They may think that, but they may also not think that. And you're caught up in the what if they think that of me, instead of, at this moment, I can't do that because it won't serve me or my family well." And a no thank you is just as polite as saying yes.
Yeah. Because I am totally a recovering people pleaser. But learning boundaries has been so life changing for me and really appreciating boundaries because I've found that I appreciate other people who have boundaries because I know that I can ask them anything. And if they want to do it, they'll say yes. And if they don't, they'll say no. So it frees me up. Then it doesn't have to be my job to figure out their boundaries or to decide what their boundaries should be. And realizing I can give that same gift to other people. It's not other people's job to figure out my work life balance. It's not other people's job to figure out where my boundaries should be. It's not their job to like test and feel and try to sort it out and exert so much mental and emotional energy. It's my job to do that. And so I'm doing a favor by I'm doing their job and they can just ask me whatever. And I know my boundaries, so it's either in it or out of it. I either can or I can't. Um, but just realizing like what part of that is my job and
Mhm.
not putting it on other people has made it's just been such a helpful mindset for me to like be like having boundaries isn't mean. It's a gift I can give to other people.
And I think that when the intention behind a boundary is pure and lovely and good, then you feel less guilty saying no thank you to things. And if that other person knows that you love them no matter what, your intention is always good and your heart is always good, then when you use the word no, I can't do that right now, it doesn't mean that you dislike them. It doesn't mean the relationship is strained. It just means right now it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when you start practicing that, they will see it as a good thing. It's just hard when you come from a people pleasing background, saying yes to everything. It's hard for people to accept it in the beginning because it's
Yeah.
new. But once you
Yeah.
start to lay the groundwork and the foundation that no, it's all good. I still love you. I still want to help you. Just sometimes I can't always say yes.
Yeah. So it sounds like you made a lot of kind of internal progress over a year between the journaling and the therapy and learning to say no. What was the fruit of that work that you had done?
Well, I started to feel internal peace that I had never felt before. I started to love myself again. I found confidence in who I was without having to be tied to that specific role on TV or tied to an identity that, could go away at any time. And so I just started to see myself as worthy and loved just who I am right now, whether I was on TV or not. And that was a beautiful new place to be. I know a lot of people, when they, have heard our story, they say, well, that must be nice to be able to leave a job, but I can't. Because I'm tied to that paycheck. And I totally get that. A lot of people don't realize that the work we did for the 9 years prior to this set us up to have the opportunity to make this transition and the ability to say no thank you to a new contract in TV. In 2011, my husband and I, we went completely broke, literally had a rock bottom moment with our son at the grocery store. And that year was a year of change for us, learning how to steward our money better, manage our money better, and start saying no to all the things so that we could then create a life that was not tied to debt and where we had financial independence. We had no idea that 9 years now we would be in a position where my heart would change so drastically with this job that I was doing. But because of the choices we made then and the path that we had walked, we were able to leave my career without it really rocking our family because we lived so far below our means based on what we did in 2011.
So because you guys had that moment where I think like so many, especially Americans, are like, wow, we have a lot of debt. We're really living paycheck to paycheck, which is hard, especially when you have, two good incomes to find yourself in that spot. But you had made all of these changes, paid down your debt, were living below your means, and you were able to transition out of this career, kind of your one big career into something else. I'm curious, what was that transition like? And how did you have the confidence and just that courage to be like, I'm going to try something new?
Well, the confidence is being gained every day. I
Yeah.
can't lie to you and say that I wake up thinking, I know I can do this. When you have been doing something for so long, I think anyone out there can probably find something that they're really good, like a career you've been in for a long time, a level of something you've been doing, right? You're good at what you do.
Yeah.
And to leave that and be new again and be
Yeah.
the girl that has to learn all the things, that's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
But I live by this motto. The late Eleanor Roosevelt said it, and that's do one thing every day that scares you. And I started living that way when I took the job as an intern at the television station back in the early 2000s. 2003, I think I took that internship. And I just approached every opportunity like that. And every time I do something that scares me, I earn a new layer of courage and confidence. And when you start to build on those layers, you start to believe in yourself. Like, I can do these things. So, doing this new thing and building this company and building this community to empower women is so new, right? This whole online space is new to me. I am Googling everything. I'm asking for answers from people that are doing way better in this than I am. And that is a humbling place to be. I think you have to humble yourself, and you have to go back to that moment when you started that thing that you got really good at. And remember, you were new then too,
Yeah.
but you did it. You learned, you did it every day, feet forward. And if you can go back to that place and remember, oh, I've come a long way, the new thing seems a little less scary because you know you've been the new girl before and you can do it again.
Yeah. That's so encouraging to me and so inspiring because it is so difficult to start over. And especially for a lot of women, because we don't have the perfect picture or the perfect game plan. We aren't like, I know exactly the thing I'm going into and I know I'll be awesome at it. Like, we don't. We're trying something that may or may not work. We might not have all the puzzle pieces perfectly in line, but we'll figure it out, kind of one day at a time. Like you were saying, just do the next scary thing that gives us that confidence, that gives us that clarity. Because confidence and clarity always come in doing. How have you seen that play out in just this kind of brand new life, this brand new career that you're creating?
I think I have tried to keep my mind open to see those reaffirming nods from God that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that when we keep searching for that confidence and that clarity, it comes our way, but we have to be open to see it. And so just the other day, I was having just a day of like, what am I doing? Like, what have I done today? Have I moved the needle in this? Am I growing this community the way it's supposed to be grown? And then I get smacked with an email from a woman that said, I committed to doing what you said you did. And I don't love journaling because it brings up all of this stuff in my heart. And these questions are really hard for me to answer.
Yeah.
But she said, I've been doing it for 3 months now. And I finally can write something down that I love about myself. And I find that I am doing things every day with more intention and purpose. And I am feeling more peace than I ever have in my life. And right then and there, I was like, oh, thank you. Okay, got it. I'll keep going.
Yeah.
So look for those things. These are not coincidences. This is not a mistake. These are not just nice emails people send. They are truly affirming nods that you are doing what you're supposed to do, because it is going to be windy and scary, and you are going to have days where you question it all and you want to go back to comfort, which is what you know.
Yeah.
But look for those moments.
And thank you so much, Andrea, for being here and just sharing this little piece of your story.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you. I really appreciate you.
And for all of, especially the women listening, if you feel like this story resonated with you and you just want to connect more with Andrea and what she's doing, I would go to her Instagram feed because it is on fire. And I love following her on Instagram. It's Andrea Robinson TV. And you can just see all the things that she's doing in her site and her You Do Your Journal. It's all there. I think that Andrea's story is such an amazing example of how even when things feel perfect on the outside, we have to do the hard internal work, the messy, complicated, challenging work of making things good on the inside first. Because her story really demonstrates that you don't have to be perfect, but you just have to be a little bit more courageous every day because adventure awaits.